Well, I'm excited you're here. We're going to mix this up a little bit. I'm going to read my verses first, y'all. Flipping this thing around. We're in Exodus. It's where we've been this whole time. Exodus means a way out because God's a waymaker. And so we're going to read through the verses really quick. So if you'll all meet me there, it's in Exodus 14. If you got a Bible, if you got a smartphone, if you got an app, if you got the whole thing memorized, that's great. I want to meet you afterwards and hear you read the whole book of Exodus from your brain. But I'm excited you're here. We're going to be in Exodus 14. I'm going to give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2.5, 2, 1.25, 1, 0. Here we go. The Lord gave these instructions to Moses. Why was he giving Moses instructions? Well, he had just finally led Israel out of Egypt. They were on their way out. Pharaoh was like, get out of here. I don't want anything to do with you guys anymore. And then God comes to Moses and he says, I'm giving you some new instructions. Here's his instructions. Order the Israelites to turn back. They had already been gone for a while. They had already been walking for a long time. And now God says, I want you to turn back the way you came, turn back, go back the way, and camp by you can't pronounce it either. So between Migdol, I got that one, and the sea. Camp there along the shore across from Baal Zephon. Then Pharaoh will think the Israelites are confused. They're trapped in the wilderness. And once again, I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will chase after you. I've planned this in order to display my glory through Pharaoh and his whole army. After that, the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. So the Israelites camped there as they were told. I need you to look at your neighbor and tell him my sermon title. Say, neighbor, it's the faith factor. Say it with some attitude. It's the faith factor. I'm so excited. If you're excited you're here, can you just clap your hands? Get excited to be here for a minute. Woo! I'm excited you're here. The faith factor. Faith factor. With an A, not an O-R. The factor. Moses has led these people out of Egypt. If you haven't been here the past few weeks, the Israelites were promised this promised land. They're a promised land. That's why it's called the promised land. And for 400 years, they have been in slavery in Egypt. There is no one alive that remembers a time before slavery. Moses is asked by God, told by God, go before Pharaoh. You're going to lead my people out of this slavery. I've heard what's going on. I've seen it and I've known, but I've been getting something in the works. I've been getting things ready. I've been making a way, even when you haven't seen it, even when you don't know it, even when you haven't been feeling it. In these 400 years, I've been setting everything up perfectly. And now it's time. I want you to lead my people out. He goes before Pharaoh. Pharaoh's like, you're crazy. These are my free work people. They're not going anywhere. And so Moses is like, cool, well then God's going to do some crazy stuff. And it gets real fast. God does all this crazy stuff, turns the river to blood. That's insane. You think tap water tastes bad. That's not good. He makes all these flies come out of nowhere. I mean, it's just crazy stuff. You should read about it. The Bible's not boring. You're boring. And you should read it. And eventually all this stuff goes down, and Pharaoh eventually has had enough. And he says, listen, take your people, get out of here. And they are on their way out when Moses gets this call from God. God calls up Moses. He's like, hey, listen, I got this new plan. I know you've been going, you've been walking, you've been marching, you've been singing your songs about how you're finally gone, but I need you to kind of take a detour. Now, they were already going a weird direction. They were already not going in a straight line towards where they needed to be. Now, there's no way that they just thought that they were going to get out of here and Pharaoh was never going to come after them. I think some of them were probably skeptical and were like, what if he runs back after this? And what's crazy is where they decide to make this turn, they could have actually went straight into a desert. And how many of you know chariots, because I know all of you have a chariot and are very experienced in chariots, chariots don't do so good in the sand. So if they would have went that way, Pharaoh never could have chased them. But God says, no, I want you to turn back this way. And if I had a map to be able to show you, it's basically like there's a lot of land and then there's ocean, and God sets it up to where they are trapped and there's nowhere else to go. God does this. God, on their way out, says, I need you to instead head this way. God tells Moses, listen, when you do this, it's actually going to make Pharaoh chase after you. I know you just left. I know you just got out of this place. But as soon as you do what I'm asking you to do, which already doesn't make sense, it's only going to get worse. Look at your neighbor and go, it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. In fact, you're not only going to be going the wrong way, but it's going to cause Pharaoh to come after you. Now just imagine being Moses in this moment. You already didn't feel like you could lead the people out of slavery. You already were leading a lot of people, but they were enslaved by Egypt. You were telling Pharaoh, listen, you're not going to get your free workforce anymore. God just said, let them go. Like God already told you to do that, and it worked. How many of you know I'm not testing my luck anymore? Like if I win the lottery, I'm not turning that $1 million back in to buy more lotto tickets, right? I'm not saying you should play the lottery, but if you do and you win $1 million, don't turn around and spend the million back again and go, I must be lucky. This is what it feels like. Moses has already gotten lucky. Pharaoh let him go. Now why are we making things worse? Why are we deciding to go a different way? God says, just trust me. Look at your neighbor and say, do you trust me? I like when you guys talk to each other. Do you trust me? Makes you think of Aladdin. Do you trust me? God says, Moses, just trust me. And if I'm going to be honest, I have a hard time trusting people. And I can see them. They're right in front of me. How much harder is it to trust a God that you can't see when he tells you to do something you don't want to do? Or when he tells you to do something that seems absolutely crazy and not the best plan for your life? If I'm honest, sometimes I trust my GPS a lot more than I trust God. I will follow Waze into a lake. You can ask my wife. Waze will be like, hey, you're going to detour, you're going to turn the opposite way. And I'm like, Waze said it. It's smarter than me. Let's do this. And it's gotten me in trouble a few times. There's an Office episode. I don't know if you watch The Office. But basically, Michael Scott drives into a lake because he is listening to his GPS and it tells him the wrong way. That would be me. That would be me. And in fact, it happened to me once. I was actually on my way. I didn't drive into a lake. Y'all, I didn't drown. I'm fine. This is not my clone. I'm here. I was actually doing an internship, a youth ministry internship in Wichita, Kansas. Wichita, Kansas, y'all. Anybody from Wichita? No, you're not. There ain't nobody here from Wichita. I'm doing an internship in there, and these people, because I was in a city and a state that I had never been in, I didn't know anybody there. I just got a call from this youth pastor. He was like, hey, come be my intern. So I was like, cool, come be your intern. So I get there, and this is over the summer. So the 4th of July is in the summer, and these people go, hey, I know you don't know anybody. We throw this huge 4th of July thing. Listen, we buy so many fireworks, and I'm like, sweet, blowing stuff up at a random house out in the woods. This sounds great. And so they invite me. They give me the address. I plug it into my GPS. On the way there, it says this place is about 45 minutes from where I was because I lived about 20 minutes from the church. They lived 20 minutes in the opposite direction of the church I was interning at. So it ended up being about 45 minutes. And I'm on my way there, and it starts getting really wooded. Like there's just trees everywhere, and it's looking like I'm out in the boonies. And all of a sudden, my GPS says, in 500 feet, turn left. And I'm like, sweet. We're probably close to there. It says I'm still about 15-ish minutes away. And I'm driving, and I get up to this place, and it says turn left. And I look to my left, and there is what looks like they at one time planned to be a 4-lane highway, but it was just dirt. Like it was like trees and trees, but then this big empty space, like big enough to fit like a 4-lane interstate. And it's just dirt. And I see a street sign for it, but I'm like, this can't be right. But the GPS said to turn, so I turned. And I'm on this thing for 15 minutes, and there's not another road. There's not another car. There's not another house. There's nothing. And all I could think of was that at any moment, a masked man with an axe was going to come out. And then in 10 days, I was going to show up on the news when they realized they couldn't find me and someone didn't know where I was. And that's all I could imagine. Now, eventually, I got there. But for a while, I was like, I don't know where this is going. My GPS is about to get me murdered and ending up on 2020. And I was not excited to be murdered and on 2020. But how many of you have ever went the wrong way at some point in time? In a car, in the hallway, you're on your way to class and you realize I was supposed to be in a different hall. It is the worst. Not just because you realize how much time you wasted, but everyone in your hallway has to watch you go and turn the other way. But what do you do when it seems like God is the one that's telling you to go that way? What do you do when it seems like God is asking you to go somewhere and you don't know where that's ending up? Now, when I'm on the dirt road, at least my GPS has this thing called an ETA, and it tells me how close I am. God doesn't have an ETA, though. Like if God could be like, listen, it seems like you're going down a road that doesn't make any sense, but in 1 month, 3 days, 2 hours, and 38 minutes, and 22 and a half seconds, all this is going to be done, you're going to be good. I would be great. Following God would be so much easier. Things would get better. I'd be like, cool, this is all good. I'll drive down the road of the axe murderer, and it's all good because I'll be there in 15 minutes. But God seems to not have ETAs. He seems to have JTMs, just trust me's. In fact, in Genesis, he tells this dude, Abraham, listen, I'm going to take you to this promised land, the one these people in Exodus are just now getting to go to. He says, listen, I'm going to give it to him. And Abraham goes, where is it? And he goes, I'll show you. I'll tell you when you get there. That's the worst. When your mom gives you chores and you go, how long do I do this? She goes, I'll tell you when to stop. I'll tell you when you're done. Or when a teacher's like, listen, you need to do this, you need to fill out this paper, keep writing, keep reading, keep doing this, and you're like, well, when is it over? She'll go, I'll tell you when it's over. I had a teacher in high school, it was the worst, and she would never let us out on time for our next class, so I'd be late to my next class every time because she would say, I'll let you know when you leave. The bell does not tell you when you leave, I tell you when you leave. It was the worst. But if God had an ETA, it seems like things would get better. So what do you do if you're Moses and he says, listen, take these people out of Egypt, you do it. Check off the list. Doing what God wanted me to do. Then he says, listen, I need you to go the opposite way and do what seems like it doesn't make sense. How do you trust God when you don't know the outcome? Because it's really hard to trust something when you don't know the outcome. That's when something called faith comes in. It's the faith factor. Everybody say faith factor. 1, 2, 3. It's the faith factor. You got to have faith. Now, when I was growing up, I remember in church and in just life in general, people would tell me, like, you just got to have faith, right? You just got to have it. Like it was something that there was just like a switch, like back here somewhere, and oh, there it is, and I would just flip it, and all of a sudden I would have faith in everything. Am I the only one that's ever felt that way? Like that was the expectation on your life? Oh, maybe it's just me, I guess so. But I would feel like people would just talk about faith, talk about like having this wild trust in a God that you can't see, and that you could just have it by just going, boom, and it just flipped. Now, there is a level of faith that you've got to just choose to have. Like you've got to just decide that you're going to believe that God is who he says he is and accept Jesus into your life. You've got to have faith for that. But afterwards, I feel like God expects faith to grow in you. That it's not just like, oh, I'm going to check off my list today to up 50 points in the faith category. But that God wants your faith to grow. God wants your faith to get larger. But the question is, how does faith get bigger? Because even the apostles in, I think it was Luke 17, it's not going to be on the screen, but they asked, the disciples of Jesus, they ask Jesus, they say, will you increase our faith? Please increase our faith. Give us more faith than we currently have. They wanted it, they didn't know how to get it, and they hung out with Jesus all the time. So then how do we get faith? How do we actually get faith now so that when the time comes to trust God in some crazy circumstance, that I'm just going to be able to do it? I believe that faith can only grow when it's tested. Faith can only grow. Like, you can only know that that friend is really ride or die for you, there for you, when the opportunity comes for them to like kind of disown you or gossip about you or do something against you and they decide not to do it. Like, you can believe they're for you all day, but it's not until they have the opportunity to be against you and then they decide not to do it that you really know that you can trust them. In the same way, your faith grows in God when it's tested. And if you never navigate your life and allow your life to get into a place where your faith in God has to be tested, where you have to go all in and just trust and believe and have faith that God's going to do what he's going to do, you will never have more faith than you currently have. And God decides, I need my people, Israel, to have more faith than they currently have, because the thing they're about to face is so much smaller than what's about to come. Getting out of Egypt was easy. And God was already known by the Israelites as a redeemer. Like, at this point, they knew redeemer means to buy back, to purchase back. God had purchased them out of Israel, but now he needed to know, or they needed to know God as a deliverer. Someone who could save them from something. But their faith had to be tested for them to ever know God in that way. What if God wants you to know something about him and believe something about him, but the only way you can know it is if you have to go through it and see him come through? I don't want to do that. Maybe you do, but that sounds rough. But if we want our faith to grow, we've got to step out, we've got to trust God, and we've got to go through things sometimes that we would never honestly choose on our own. And the weirdest part of this is at the point where God's not just telling Moses, listen, you need to turn around, you need to go a different way, you need to like come back the way you came, and it's going to feel weird and it's not going to make sense. But he actually says, listen, when you do this, you turning and going the wrong way is actually going to cause Pharaoh to go, they must be confused. I'm going to go steal them back. Now, to me, that's the point where I'm going, God, it seems like this isn't a good idea. Like, it seems like this doesn't make any sense. You're already telling us to turn around. Now why are you just stacking the odds and making it worse? Like, why are you deciding that this is going to get terrible? Like, when you already asked your mom for an extra $20 for gas, like, that's not the time to go back and ask her if you can go do something else. Like, I got to accept that I already asked her for something. This is already good. And God's like, no, you're not just going to turn and go the wrong way. I didn't just lead you out. I'm also going to send Pharaoh after you. Why would God do that? To test him. To put them in a situation where they would have to honestly see if God could come through. It's faith. It's faith. And you know those moments where you honestly are making a decision? Because I think everyone in here at one time, at some point, has had the thought to make their relationship with God better. Whether it was, I need to start reading a little more. Whether it was, I'm going to decide this Wednesday to like listen during the service. Or whether it was, I'm going to talk about my faith to one of my friends. I'm going to start living out my life and my relationship with Jesus a little bit better. Or maybe it's something like, I'm going to go find this person and actually witness to them. I'm going to decide to go into Bible college and pursue ministry. I don't know what it is. It can be big. It can be small. But all of us at some point have had the thought of, here's a step I could take that would be faith, that would be me making my relationship with God better, that would be me pursuing what God wants me to do. And then right after that comes the thought, but if I do that, then this will happen. Like, if I start to actually live out my faith, then they'll make fun of me. Like, if we turn and go back the opposite way with all the Israelites, then Pharaoh's going to come. Like, if I break up with this guy, odds are I'm not going to find someone for a long time. And I always thought that that was me coming up with excuses. What if that's actually God? Like, what if God's like, you're like, I need to break up with that guy. And then your second thought is, but if I do, like, I'll lose this relationship. I may not find someone for a while. And God's going, no, that's for me. You don't need to be with anyone for a while. You need to break up with this dude so you can be better. Or if God's like, or if you're thinking like, I need to not gossip like I used to. I need to get out of this friend group. But if I get out of this friend group, if I don't do what they're doing, if I don't go to the party that they're going to, that I know all this awful stuff's going to be going on during, I'm going to lose this friend group. And you think that's you making an excuse, and God's doing, no, you're going to lose the friend group because you want better friends. And the better friends I have prepared for you are never going to be friends with you if you're still associating with them. Y'all are really quiet. Like you start making the decision that you're going to start to live out your faith, but your second thought is, man, but then my parents are going to start asking questions, and your parents don't believe what you believe, and that's not you making an excuse. That's God saying, no, your parents are going to start to ask questions. You've been thinking about how you wish your parents believed, but you didn't know what to say. You're going to live out your faith, and then your parents are going to ask you. You're not even going to have to start the conversation. God goes, you're going to go the other way. You're going to follow what I want you to do, and Pharaoh's going to follow you. Not but Pharaoh's going to follow you, and Pharaoh's going to follow you, and it's going to grow your faith in a way, and you're going to find something out about me that you could never find any other way. What do you do in these moments when it feels like you've been going the wrong direction for a long time? And it feels like it's God that's led you that way. This happened to me the other day. Where's Josiah at? Josiah, you in here? I don't know where he's at. I was in a car with Josiah and Patrick Brannon. How many of you know Patrick Brannon? If you have ever, man, y'all yelled for Patrick Brannon more than you yelled for Jesus. Y'all need to get excited about God or something because he saved you, he redeemed you, he wants to be with you. This is the moment where you get excited, more excited about Jesus than Patrick Brannon. My goodness. Now, Patrick has a calling card. If you have ever been anywhere near Patrick when he's traveling, Patrick believes that he does not need a GPS and he can get anywhere on his own and give you 5 different ways to get there. So me and Josiah are in a car with Patrick, and we are on our way to a hospital, and about an hour into this drive, he picks up his phone and he realizes, guys, we're on the wrong side of Atlanta. I thought this is where the hospital was. And we're like, oh my gosh, Patrick, what are you doing, man? We got to get there. And we were coming to see Alan. Where's Alan at? Alan's in here somewhere. There you are, bro. We were coming to see you. And we get to the wrong side of Atlanta, and he goes, man, I am so sorry. We went the wrong way. And I go, Patrick, use your GPS. Who doesn't use a GPS? I don't care if you know the way. This is a long drive. Waze knows more than you do. Plug it in, plug it in. And so he finally puts the address in. We get there. We go up the elevator. We get there, and we go, we are here to see blankety blank, Alan Fenn. And we walk up, and they're like, there is no Allen here. Like, not only is there not that last name, there is not a single Allen here. And I look at Patrick, and I go, are you kidding me? And he looks. He went to the wrong hospital again. So then we get in the car, and we finally get there. And it's a funny story, but honestly, often it's how I feel about following God. Like I'm doing what he wants me to do. I'm running where he wants me to run. I'm making the decisions he wants me to make. Why does it feel like I'm going the wrong direction? Why does it feel like what I'm doing isn't making sense? Proverbs says not to lean on your own understanding, but trust God in everything that you do. It's hard when it feels like I'm on the wrong side of the interstate. And what happens if a car just starts coming? What happens if things just start coming at me? God says, listen, I know I just took you out of Egypt, out of slavery. I need you to turn a different direction. And in this moment, it wasn't just that they were having to turn and go a different direction. The promised land was this way, and they knew because they were familiar with the land that God said they were going to turn to. They, this whole time, had been walking straight towards it, and God goes, I need you to go the other way. And if you're the Israelites, Moses came to you and said, God said we're doing this. You did this. You stepped out in faith, believed that God would do it. And then Moses is like, hey, y'all, just kidding. Joke's on you, JK, LOL. Promised land's that way. We're going this way now. God said we need to go that way and that Pharaoh's going to run after us. And you're like, okay. Like I want friends. And God's saying, well, you're going to have to give up the ones you have for now. Or else I can't ever get you the friends that you need to have. Like I want the right relationship, and God's like, well, you're going to have to get out of the one you're in. I want to feel better about myself, where you're going to have to stop tearing people down, because I know it makes you feel good for a moment. It makes you feel better about yourself for a while when you gossip about all those other people. But you're going to have to stop. Break away from that addiction of gossip for a little bit for me to get you where you need to be. It feels like the opposite direction. Not too long ago, this was, I think a couple years, was driving on the interstate on the way to Tennessee. I'm from just south of Nashville, and we were on our way to visit my family. And we were driving really, really late at night. And something you'll know about me if you ever ride in a car with me, and something that my wife just loves, is that I have to be constantly drinking something when I'm on a road trip. It doesn't stop. And when you drink something consistently, I stopped and had to use the bathroom 6 times on a 4-hour drive. How many of y'all you would throw me out of the car? You're like, get out of here. I'm never riding with any of y'all. This is why I don't ride the bus to camp. Oh, there's a bathroom on it. Oh, well. We're on our way. I had already stopped like 6 times. And the thing my wife hates the most is we will be like 15 minutes from our destination, but I will have been holding it for an hour and a half. And I'm at this point now where it's like I am going to literally... it's just going to come out. If I don't get out of this car, I know that's TMI, but you've been there. It's just going to ruin your seats in your car, because we couldn't afford leather. We have a cloth interior. It's going to ruin it. So we stop, and Emily's like, oh my God. Again. So we pull off. Use the bathroom at this real sketchy shell right outside Manchester, Tennessee. What? And we get back on the home of Bonnaroo. And we get back on the interstate. And about 5 minutes into driving, we come up to this. Now it's hard to see the perspective. I wish I would have got a better picture. This is a semi-truck turned over, blocking the entire interstate. Those 2 cars had not even 15, 20, 30 seconds before we got there, crashed into the bottom of that semi-truck. The semi-truck had gone off the road, through the grass onto the opposite side of the interstate, turned back, flipped on its side, and ended right there where it was blocking the whole road. We were in a section of the interstate, and if you've ever been out in the middle of nowhere, this section of Tennessee is like the boonies, like redneck. And we're out there, and there is not a single exit around. We had just left the only exit. We had been driving for like a minute or so, 5 minutes, something like that. We're out in the middle of nowhere. There's no lights. There's no exits. There's no gas stations. And it's so late at night, there's barely any other cars. So we didn't see the semi-truck till we were almost that close to it. We were the 3rd car to find this semi-truck. The first 2 had crashed into it at almost full speed. Now, everyone ended up being okay, which was miraculous. But what I kept thinking is, what if I hadn't peed? I mean, would I have, been one of the cars that crashed into it? Or worse, would I have maybe been there when the semi-truck went off the road and swerved back on and gotten hit and probably gotten even more injured? Now, I'm not saying God works through your bladder. But sometimes you don't know why you're doing what you're doing when you're following after God. And he's telling you to do things. And you're hearing things from the stage, and you're hearing things through worship music. And I think God speaks through thoughts. And you're having these thoughts where you're like, you want me to quit the sports team? And God's like, yeah. Because if you stay in the one you're in, you'll never make it to one in college, because you're going to get involved in something right now that's going to ruin your life on this team. And if you'll trust me to get you where I want you to be, it's not going to make sense at first, but it's going to get you. Like, God, you want me to leave all of these friends? And he's like, you have no idea the friendships that I have in store for you. And if you keep hanging around these people who are dragging you down, those friends are going to see you as just like them, and they're not going to judge you, but they're not going to want to invest their lives in you. Like, God, you want me to go into ministry? Like, I had this whole idea to be a lawyer, or to go play sports, or to be a doctor, and that's what my family has done. And honestly, I want to make that paper, and I want to do something better, because listen, ministries doesn't pay a lot, and I want to be able to run after that, and that was the whole plan. And God's like, listen, you may make money in that, but you won't find purpose. Some of you are called to be doctors and lawyers, and so don't think at all that I'm saying that God can't work through those things. He does, and we need people who are working at McDonald's for the glory of God. But listen, if God has called you into something else and you're going the opposite way, you're never going to find the purpose in that you could if you would have done what God wanted you to do. But often it feels like the opposite direction. Like, God, He wanted me to go to a school in Missouri? I didn't even know where Missouri was till I went there. Met my wife, met some amazing friends, got my first job. I wouldn't be here if I hadn't gone to Missouri. But God, you want me to talk to my parents about what I believe? You want me to share that with my friend? God, I can't speak like some of these other people I've seen. And he's going, I did it for Moses, or at least I tried to. I can do it for you. Like, what are we gonna do? It's the faith factor. There used to be a show called Fear Factor. Y'all know nothing about Fear Factor. I'm so proud of you. My stepdad tried out for Fear Factor. We had we got a camera, we set it up, and we all stood there. My stepdad was like, hello, my name is Michael Turner, and I want to be on Fear Factor. And it was like the widest, most cheesiest, like, I want to be on, this is my lovely family. But the whole reason it's called Fear Factor is because if you've ever seen it, 99% of what the people have to do is they actually don't have to do anything. They just have to sit there. And what for some people would be a normal activity, there's a thing called the fear factor. The fear factor. And all you have to do is sit there and let a tarantula crawl on your face. Now me, I would rather burn the place down. But all you have to do is sit there and let it crawl across your face. But the fear factor is that you're moments away from $250,000. But the fear factor is that time when fear kicks in and tells you it's not going to be okay. You need to jerk your head out of this plexiglass case and get away, because this tarantula is going to eat your face, or lay babies in your eyes and you're not going to know about it, and it's just not going to go good for you. But the fear factor can apply to your faith. And the question is, are you going to have faith factor, which is it doesn't matter what's coming against me, I got the faith factor, I can run after it, or are you going to hear God's call to go the opposite way, and he's going to go, and also stuff's going to get hard for you, and you're going to go and let the fear factor take over? Or will you step through it and let faith take over? This is the line that you have to cross to come to know Jesus. Like, if you don't know Jesus today, it's a real faith step that you have to take to really believe that there's this God who sent his son to die for you. And everyone on the stage and all of our leaders and tons of you in this room have made that decision. Where there's the fear of what if I'm wrong, of what will they say, of what will everyone around me think. And then there's the faith factor where you decide, I'm choosing to believe this. I heard someone today say that you can live your life by principle or by pressure. Living your life by pressure is when you're pressured to do something, when the fear presses down on you, when everything around you is pushing in, then you make your decisions. Living your life by principle is deciding ahead of time what I'm going to do. I'm deciding before the time even comes what I'm going to do when it comes. So I'm deciding today, and I want to know if you're with me, to decide today that when the time comes and God calls me to do something, I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm deciding today that when that moment comes, I'm going to say yes. Putting your faith in Jesus for the first time is deciding that even though I can't see everything, even though I don't understand anything, that right now I'm deciding in advance, before I ever see Jesus face to face, that he is who he says he is, that he did what he said he did, and he's going to be with me like he said he would.